I did specifically go with the intention of seeing one in the snow. Somehow I didn't think through that that would also mean that I would be in the snow. The belted kingfisher is a widespread, though relatively understudied, North American bird that inhabits an aquatic variety of environments. Sure. It hunts mainly by plunge diving for fish and other aquatic prey, leaving regurgitated pellets that help scientists study their diet without disturbing the birds. That's not their reason for regurgitating these pellets. It's just helpful to us, although somewhat gross. Science ain't always pretty. Most individuals migrate south for the winter, although some do stay in the north as long as open water persists. Up here, only a little bit of open water persists, but some make do. They are usually solitary birds, will strongly defend their shoreline territories year-round, using their distinct loud rattling call and aerial chases. They are intimidating when they chase you. They're very direct. Although I've only had them ever fly away from me, but I can still see how it would be intimidating. Suitable nesting sites are crucial for their abundance and distribution. And for these guys, nests are burrows that they burrow into earthen banks. Earthen banks. Clay and dirt. They burrow into the dirt. They typically raise one brood per year and show slight fidelity to their nesting sites, but not really. And they sometimes do use human-made nesting sites like gravel pits. The belted kingfisher is a medium-sized, stocky bird with a large head and a prominent, ragged, double-pointed crest. They do always kind of look like somebody just went to their head. It has a blue-gray back and a nearly complete white collar on the hind neck. Males and females are distinguished by chest bands. Males have a single blue-gray band, while females have an additional rufous band and rufous sides. Orange, it's orange, which does make the females the more colorful ones, and it makes it pretty easy to tell them apart. They also have a distinctive white spot near each eye, which is present in all ages, which you will likely be able to see when they're flying, but not their real eye. It'll look like they have just a bright white eye. Juveniles pretty closely resemble adults, but have darker crests, more white on their wings and tail, and browner or cinnamon-colored breastbands. As I think you pretty often see, they look just sort of like bedraggled adults. Hatchlings are naked at hatching, then quickly develop feathers and fledging at about day 30. And while most hatchling and juvenile birds don't look particularly dignified, I think these guys look particularly scruffy. Their juvenile plumage is retained until the fall, where they have their first pre-basic molt, in the winter, after the fall. And molt strategies actually differ depending on whether a bird is a resident bird or a migrating bird. Migrating bird. With resident bird molt varying from not molting at all to all of their head and 60 to 80% of their body plumage molting, not their wing feathers, with migrating individuals replacing all of their body feathers with some scattered feathers so that they don't, some of their primaries, some of their secondaries, and some of their tail feathers. And rarely that can actually be a complete molt for them. I was not able to find whether we know why there's this variation between resident and migratory birds. We may know why, and I might still just not know why. The size difference between sexes and different birds in different regions is pretty slight, with body mass averaging at about 140 to 155 grams. You'll sometimes hear that there are two subspecies of these guys, with western birds being bigger with a larger bill. Studies have shown that there's a large overlap in sizes, and so the validity of these subspecies has been thrown up in the air. These guys belong to the family Alcidinidae, which is the kingfishers, generally. Just saying that made me tired, so I'm going to say this is the order that they're in, and this is their subspecies, and this is their genus. Losing my voice a little. There are three major lineages recognized within the kingfishers, and the one that the belted kingfisher is in includes the large typical kingfishers. And the oldest known kingfisher fossil in North America dates back 2 million years. Of the 117 kingfisher species that there are only 6 of them in the Americas, which is functionally half the world, so not that many, with only really the belted kingfisher in the US. Although you can get a couple of other ones, the ringed kingfisher. Although you can get a couple of the other ones in the southern states, the ringed kingfisher and the green kingfisher, but really, particularly for where I am, it's just the belted kingfisher. I really want to see some other of the kingfishers around the world. Give me some kookaburras. They're so wonderful. Being a worldwide bird, you can understand that they've got a lot of variety to them, varying from these tiny dwarf-sized species to the crow-sized kookaburras in Australia. And basically, they're all water birds. They like being by the water, not waterfowl. I will die on that hill. Across the board, they are all carnivorous, and they are sit-and-wait predators, with smaller, more terrestrial species eating insects, with bigger species getting all the way up to eating reptiles, other birds, and mammals. The aquatic species primarily eat fish, like the belted kingfisher, using that plunge diving technique and a specialized off-axis lens for underwater focus. I'd like one of those in a camera. And it allows them to instantaneously switch the focus on their retinas so that as soon as their head hits the water, they can still see and capture their prey. That is an adapted bird. And some species, such as the shovel-billed kookaburra, feed on subterranean prey using their bill to dig into the dirt. They do a lot of things. So back specifically to the belted kingfisher, the one I've seen, because I haven't gone enough places in the world yet. One day. The belted kingfisher breeds across much of North America, basically wherever there is suitable habitats for them. Basically, they want some water and some mud to live in. And as I said, their breeding range slightly overlaps with the ringed kingfisher in the southwestern United States, but not too much. In winter, most individuals will leave Canada and where I am, which is basically Canada, although some will remain as long as there's open water. It's a little bit crazy, but to each their own. And these guys winter widely across the southern US, Mexico, you name it. I mean, no, you don't name it, it's Central America and the Caribbean. Although they do not breed outside of North America, only winter there. And although they don't really get anywhere besides the Americas, there have been rare records of them getting to Hawaii, the Galapagos, Greenland, and even Europe. Some fly very far. During the breeding season, kingfishers require clear waters that support abundant aquatic prey and steep exposed earth banks for nesting, for burrow nesting. It's a legitimate breeding strategy for non-claustrophobic animals. They are somewhat picky about where they end up. They really like things like stream riffles and sheltered lake coves, while if there's basically any floating vegetation or wave activity, they'll toss out an otherwise suitable nesting site. Which also means that if you figure out a place that's probably a pretty good habitat for one of them, pretty good bet that you could find one there at some point. And as you might imagine from the fact that some don't migrate at all, when they do migrate, they kind of stick in the same places. They follow major waterways down and then stay near water. And females typically migrate further south than males. Spring migration starts in late March through April and progresses northwards along coasts, rivers, and lakeways, with fall migration being much more gradual, starting in mid-September and lasting through November. Although generally their migration is not super well studied. It seems that ice is the strongest motivator for why they're migrating at all. They don't seem to be bothered by the cold too much. I was much more bothered by the cold, it seems, than the one I found, and limited prey access as a result of ice cover. They migrate by themselves, not in flocks. They are a pretty territorial bird, and might actually form temporary territories as it's migrating. So wherever it is, that's his. They primarily feed on fish, but their diet also includes crayfish, other crustaceans, mollusks, insects, amphibians, reptiles, and occasionally small birds, mammals, or berries. Those are occasional. You can't really plunge dive for a berry too well. They usually hunt fish found in near surface or shallow waters and require clear, unobstructive conditions to find them. Obstructive, unobstructive. Unobstructed. It's those eyes they got. They're looking for you. These guys typically forage by perching above water on branches or whatever else is around, or sometimes hovering over the water before diving. I have seen them do that. It is impressive. They just stay there, still in the sky, for 15-20 seconds. As I said, they then plunge dive to get their prey without usually fully submerging themselves, and then they carry it to a perch where they beat it to stun it and then orient it to swallow it headfirst. Wonderful. And most of the fish they get are pretty small, on the 10 centimeter range. In the 10 centimeter range. Their diet basically varies by what is there. Whatever's in that water, they're gonna eat it. And their energy needs, thus their food needs, stay basically consistent year-round. And like many other fish-eating birds, they regurgitate pellets, which are very good for study, to get rid of indigestible bones and scales and chitin that they get from the fish that they eat. This is why I'm a video editor, not a scientist. Not quite true, but I don't have the stomach for it. I'm so sorry. Hats off to you, scientists. They are highly vocal and alert birds, It does often sound like a dinosaur is after you when you hear them chattering at you, with their calling behavior starting soon after hatching, with nestlings first producing the sort of warbling call they make and getting up to their distinct rattling call within about a week. They've got a small but distinct set of vocal behaviors. Small is my favorite part. The most common is that rattle call, this harsh mechanical sound that they make for a lot of reasons: territorial defense, disturbance, and interactions with other kingfishers. Other calls include the scream, or another famous painting, which is used both during threats and greetings. I use separate calls for those. That's just me. The harsh call, usually given by males in the early breeding season, and the warbling call, which is associated with courtship and feeding nestlings. And they can actually recognize different individuals from their calls, distinguishing strangers from their mates. My dad can't tell my mom, my sister, and myself apart on the phone. So did evolution even really work? And vocalizations play a large part in almost all their social interactions. And no non-vocal sounds have been noted. As I said, they are largely solitary birds, with most of their behaviors linked pretty closely to their aquatic lifestyle. They have pretty short legs and fused toes, which limits walking, so they move basically only by short direct flights that include gliding, hovering, and low passes over water. And as I said, they often hover to locate prey in the water before diving for it. I've even seen them do that while being actively mobbed by other birds, just completely unperturbed. It's impressive. Their roosting behavior varies. They may roost in trees or their excavated burrows, and winter burrows actually help with saving energy during cold climates. Who'd have thought? They forage throughout the day, but it really peaks during the early morning. And some of their territories are actually defended year-round. Just that's their territory forever. Their territory size, though, varies a lot, seemingly largely dependent on both habitat and food availability, with generally larger territories taking place on streams and smaller ones on lakes. Males typically establish the breeding territories and then attract females who adopt the territory as well and defend it, and pairs are just for the season. And their courtship often includes males offering fish to the females. I think this is the first food offering courtship I've seen. I like it. It's how I like to be courted. Cook the fish first, please. And they've also got some aerial displays for courtship, but that's less interesting for me. I don't need an aerial display. These guys show very little social interactions with other species and aren't known to play at all, which is sad. Grebes play. I like grebes. Although juveniles have been seen practicing foraging behaviors. That's so adorable. Ugh. As is basically always the case, the predation risk is biggest for juveniles and hatchlings and eggs, with raptors, mammals, and snakes being their main predators. And in response to threats, the kingfishers will use those insane rattling calls. It's something else to hear it, with crest raising and persistent patrol flights to deter predators, keeping those territory bounds up. These guys typically only have one brood per season, although it is more common in the south for there to be two. As I said, their nests are burrows, usually burrowed into an earth bank near water, with both sexes digging to make that burrow, although typically males spend about twice as much time as the females digging it. The burrow length is in the 1 to 2 meter range, with a spherical egg chamber of about 30 centimeters. I know it's a bird. I know it's a little bird. I'm not even that claustrophobic, but that's little. That's a little mud chamber. An excavation typically takes about 3 to 7 days, although can last up to 3 weeks. And if, while burrowing, they run into any sticks or rocks that seem like a problem, the burrow will often be immediately abandoned. Just gave up when the going got tough. These nests are usually unlined, although regurgitated pellets often are used as insulation. Yay. And also males will sometimes construct non-breeding roosting burrows. Bachelor pad. Man cave. Oh my god, it is a cave. This isn't important. They typically lay in the 5 to 8 egg range per clutch, and eggs are around 7.5% of a female's body mass at laying. That's not that different from humans. We don't typically have 8 at a time, though. And even though they only have one brood per season, typically, they sometimes will have replacement clutches if the eggs of the first are lost. Females are typically the ones that incubate, and they incubate at night, although males can on occasion, and will sometimes also feed the females that are incubating. And incubation lasts typically 22 to 24 days. But if a burrow gets flooded, even if there are already eggs, the pair will often abandon the clutch. As I said, once they hatch, they are altricial, stupid-looking little things, and will huddle together for warmth for the first couple weeks of their existence. Feathers begin emerging at around day 6 and are mostly unsheathed by about day 16. And nestlings will typically reach adult weight by about day 16, although often lose weight before actually fledging. Same with humans. Human babies do that too. They don't fledge. They just lose weight and then no feathers. We don't have feathers. They usually fledge around the 27 to 30 day mark, flying very limitedly at that point, still being taken care of by their parents for about 3 weeks after that. And then they either stay in the area or disperse. Yes, those are the options. Yes, they do both. They typically breed for the first time the first year after they hatch, and hatching success is about 87%, and fledgling success is about 97%, which are both pretty darn good, at least in northern populations. And nest failure most typically is due to flooding of the burrows. And there is limited data on lifetime reproductive success. I'll help study it if you want. My endless refrain. Although mortality rates are highest amongst juveniles, with the known causes of adult mortality being raptors, entanglements in debris, and predation by mammals or cats. I mean, cats are mammals. Domesticated cats. So on this particular day, I went to see a kingfisher that I had seen in this place before. I had seen him there at least twice. I knew this was his territory. The day before I decided to go, it had snowed. There was this beautiful, white, fresh snow all over the ground. So I went, oh, I could get some beautiful pictures of him with the snowy branches. If he's still there, that'll be gorgeous. Of course, I didn't actually check the weather to see if I'd be taking pictures of him while it was actively snowing. That's what I got. As I was driving there, I couldn't see where I was going. It was snowing so hard. It was about 40 minutes away where I was driving, down on the edge of Honeoye Lake, which is one of the lesser Finger Lakes. And I had gone far enough that I decided to tough it out. I was going to get out. I was going to find him. I've always liked this place because it is a iBird New York birding trail. Pick a different day if you're gonna go. But I started along this little creek they have that flows into the top of Honeoye Lake, towards the little bridge that I knew I had seen him by before. And indeed, as soon as I got near that bridge, he started chattering away. Once again, that distinctive chattering mechanical sound, whatever you want to call it, that they make, where you're like, that's a kingfisher. I know I'm gonna go. So I stood on this beautiful little bridge that they've got that is even more beautiful in the summer and started getting pictures of him. He landed in a tree on the other side of the creek. From where I entered, I was on the bridge. He was on that side of the creek. And this is how hard it was snowing. These are the best pictures I've got. He then flew away from me down the creek towards another spot I knew I could walk over the bridge. And they've got these beautiful boardwalks and this bird viewing station that they've got set up in the middle of this sort of marshy area that I walked towards to see if I could get him from that angle. I got him on this log that was out into the little creek there. I think I've even got a video of him right there with the snow coming down, which I got to admit is beautiful in its way. I was right to think that that might be pretty. I was wrong to think that it would be pleasant to do. It did eventually lighten up a little bit, the weather, and I looked at him a little bit more, but then he flew back towards where I had originally seen him. And that was still going to be another 20 minutes of walking in the cold, which was about, 15 degrees, something like that. And I decided I was good for the day. Took a quick look at some of the mallards they had there. There was also a couple of hooded mergansers that I saw, although I only got the tail end of them. Yeah. He was a beautiful little kingfisher. I've always liked him. I think he's a him. I'd have to double check to see if he's actually got that orange, in which case he's a she. Nope, he's a he. I do have a couple of other photos of him from the previous visit, which are a little bit nicer. Here you go if you want to see them. I do also, in fact, have a kingfisher jigsaw puzzle, although it is a common kingfisher, not a belted kingfisher, because I like birds. Did you think I didn't like jigsaw puzzles? And if I ever see any other kind of kingfisher jigsaw puzzle, I will definitely get it. And I will probably see this little guy again. Might even give him a name. I've seen him so often. Because he's beautiful. And lovely. And chattery. Remember, I don't know anything about this. I only thought he was going to be here because I've seen him there before. That's pretty bad logic, actually, but works for birds. I'm just somebody who loves birds and all their antics.